Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program is the US Open gets underway in just a few hours from now. We'll take a look at how prepared are the top athletes in tennis because it is the last Grand Slam of the year and everybody is expected to put in their very best at getting what has been described as the largest sports money in the history of tennis. Beyond tennis, we'll take a look at what is in there for the Paralympians. Remember, the Paralympic Games gets underway any moment soon in Paris. And I can tell you, Team Nigeria is reputed to be major beneficiaries at the Paralympic Games. Will they do the same this year where the able-bodied athletes disappointed? We'll let you know in a short while on this edition of the program. And football returns to top level in Germany. The Bundesliga gets underway this weekend. You are aware last weekend we saw the return of Premier League football and the others in France and in Italy. And Champions League is on, and we've seen Rangers International qualify this weekend. Will Remo Stars join them? When we return from a break, we'll let you know this and many more from the world of sports. Stay with us. Welcome back. Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition here on Atlantic Television Network, and this weekend marks the return of Kingsley. Kingsley, nice to have you back.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here this weekend, Mr. Siri.
Okay, let's start on the local scene as usual because it's a very busy weekend. US Open is here, but let's start from the local scene here. The August edition of the Chess Heights Plateau State event gets underway here in Nigeria, but Plateau State especially
is a good one, looking at the fact that they're trying to see how to groom young talent. This particular one, of course, was for the under 14 and the under 10 players, and for me, I think they live up to expectation. It was really a very intense encounter where we saw the likes of AZ, DJ Ray Kingsley. Of course, he was able to come up in that particular one, and I think he has to go through due to his ranking. He has a better ranking. He was actually tied with his opponent, at the end of the day when he has to do it point, but he was able to go through his ranking at this point in that particular one. And for the under 14 category, David Peter took the first position in that one, and of course he had a very impressive performance. For me, I think this initiative is just to see how to catch them young, catching and see what they can be able to do. They're very young, so imagine they continue to play competitions like this in the next 3 to 4, 5 years. Definitely, of course, they will do well. We're talking about the aftermath of Team Nigeria at the Paris Olympic Games, where we have a very awful performance. It's as a result of preparation. It's as a result of training. We do not train to the level of our counterparts down there, or probably other countries to say. We'll just maybe at the end of the day look for those who have been maybe participating in 1 or 2 events for some time, and then bring them together, and then be able to sponsor them down to the events, and they have to do what they can. But if in a situation whereby we take a look at these athletes right from when they are young and continue to put more effort to groom them, at the end of the day they grow up to be better and very good at what they are doing. So for me, I think it's a good initiative. Like I mentioned, in the next 5 to 10 years, these players, of course, will definitely grow to be very good at what they do, at what they're competing in 4 sports. So when you take a look at it, we're all going to be competing in the para-athletics, para-badminton, para-table tennis, and also para-lifting. And for me, I'm very sure that what we have in the athletes we have in para-lifting, they are very much strong to bring back medals this time around. So I think we should be very much optimistic that this time the para-athletes, of course, they will put smiles in the faces of Nigerians.
Nigerians are looking out for the para-athletes to put smiles on their faces after a disappointing outing by the Olympic contingent with able-bodied athletes. And now we have to turn to the Paralympians to help us out and show a class at Olympic Games, especially in power lifting, one of the events that there. Meanwhile, you talked about the bonus. We understand, owing to expectations and what we've seen of them, $15,000 will be for gold medal, while 10,000 will go for silver, $5,000 for if you win a bronze medal at the Paralympic Games. This is a far departure from the past, where these jumbo sums are often for the able-bodied athletes, and looks like lesser fees or amount being given to them. But this time around, it has been increased and is reasonable by Nigerian standards.
For me, I think the sport ministry, they've done well, in this. If you take a look at it, the able-bodied athletes, they collected $5,000, for gold, and then for silver, they were given $3,000, and for bronze, it was I think $2,000. But unfortunately,
they didn't take it.
None of the athletes were able to get those bonuses. But for the para athletes, $15,000, I tell you, is a very huge one, and $10,000 for silver, and $5,000 for bronze. Very, very good improvement. If you ask me what it has to do with the bonuses. And if you take a look at it, this para athlete, they've done well over time than the able-bodied athletes. So far, so good. Since they started competing in the Olympic Games, they've got 80 medals so far. While the able-bodied athletes, they've got those 27 medals since they started participating at the Olympic Games. So for me, I think we should give them that attention. They should be given that much attention. They should be given that much care. Their welfare, of course, should be looked at. These people, they do not have that, strength to be able to move or walk around. So they need this level of care. And I think for what the sport ministry have done, it will not only, make the athlete be happy, but it's a means of motivating them to do well. And I think the sports minister he knows what he's doing, because taking a look at the fact that the able-bodied athletes were not able to come back home with a medal, at least he'll be expecting that the para-athletes will be able to do something, and that's why he's going extra mile to see how he can motivate them to do their best down there in Paris. And with this, I tell you that we're going to see what these para-athletes will do this time around.
Paralympic Games, first time in Paris during the summer, will get underway on the 28th of August, just about 72 hours or more from now. And we expect that Nigerian contingent Paralympic Games will do us proud in 4 sports. I've told you earlier that it will be a total of 4,400 athletes competing in the 22 sports at the Paralympic Games. Unfortunately, Nigeria is entering for only 4, but we hope that there will be the medal return in these 4 sports discipline. Where exactly do we have our strength, Kingsley?
For me, I think where we have our strength is powerlifting. That's where, of course, we've been amassing medals, when it has to do with the Paralympic Games. In powerlifting, we have about 9 athletes in that particular federation. 9 athletes in powerlifting. I think for me, it will go a long way for we to have a favorable outing down there. The athletes, they've been very, very much optimistic. We've listened to some of them talk, and they're looking very much optimistic. All of them are targeting gold medal this time around, and I think for me it's a very good one at this point in time. Powerlifting is where we should be looking for to get something. Para-athletics as well is another area where Team Nigeria will be getting something. I'm not too sure about para-badminton, because so far so good. We've not really done well globally when it has to do with
badminton. Even in they just concluded Paris Olympic game, where we saw Noah Luakbo. It was the second time at the Olympic game, but they have a very impressive outing. But we hope that this time around, we'll be able to see something different. And also, so forgetting para-table tennis, we understand how table tennis has really been on a decline so far in the country. But we hope that it will be a different case, for the para-athlete this time around. Let's see what they'll be able to do. But in terms of the powerlifting, I think at least we should be coming back with about at least 3 gold medals from that particular event.
Well, a lot of money at stake: $15,000 for a gold, and $10,000 for silver, and 5,000 for a bronze medal. I think that's a good motivation for the Paralympians to do their best out there in Paris in the coming days. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed on it and see how many medal returns will be coming with the team at the end of it sometime in September. Right, quickly now, let's get to our main discourse for this weekend, which is the U.S. Open. And Kingsley, the 2024 U.S. Open is the last Grand Slam of the year, and the Flushing Meadows in New York is in a very colorful atmosphere already for the very best in tennis. The draws were done just a few hours ago, and it looks like it is very interesting, both in the male and the female category. But first, let's look at the draws in the female category. Number 1 seed, Iga Swiatek, is up against a relatively unknown Kamila Roskova from Russia. Both of them maybe looking qualifier and world number 1.
Yeah, qualifier world number 1, and of course, if you take a look at it, you will see it will be an easy pass, for Iga Swiatek, being an experienced player and having been, of course, in the game for a very for some time now, and rocking that world number 1 spot. I think you see it will be a little bit of a rosy one, but in the last 2 tournaments has not been that impressive. We saw especially the last one in the Cincinnati Open, where she was being beaten by world number 2, Arina Sabalenka.
She got to the quarterfinals?
Yeah, she got to the quarterfinals, but she was beaten by Arina Sabalenka. I understand how it's been a very, very serious battle between her and Arina Sabalenka this season. And then Arina Sabalenka, of course, have to take up that revenge.
In that Cincinnati, should be her priority this time. But for the first round of the encounter, I don't really see much worry. I see Iga Swiatek, of course, pulling through in this one.
Well, looking at very tough draws for the female, but like you mentioned, for the world number 1, she shouldn't have a problem discussing their counterparts from Russia. One other notable fixture at this draw is the encounter between Emma Raducanu and Sophia Kenny of the United States of America. Emma Raducanu, if you remember, made history in 2021 when she became a qualifier.
Yeah.
And not just a qualifier, she won in the first asking at the U.S. Open. She qualified and went straight to winning the title. But thereafter, she struggled to make an impact in tennis. she's had to pull out of the Cincinnati, you know, just to be ready for the U.S. Open. And here she has a very difficult opponent, Sophia Kenin, very experienced from the United States of America.
Yeah, very experienced, and this is as a result of the poor performance of Emma Raducanu over time. When you're not well ranked, at some point you tend to face, you know, a tougher opponent, and that's what we've seen at this point in time. I would just hope that she's going to bring her A game this time. I understand how she's been suffering. You know, we've not seen her gone to the semi-final of any competition. In fact, semi-final is too far. Talking about quarterfinals.
Talking about her, she lost in the very first round last year. I think that was in 2022 when she was supposed to defend the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
You know, she lost in the first round. Now she's presently ranked as world number 71. And I don't know, do you think she can, having rested a while now, it really bring her A game to bear? But again, Sophia Kenin, very, very experienced, like I mentioned earlier.
And that makes it more dangerous. The fact that you rest doesn't mean you're going to have that strength. In fact, being active is even better because you still you have that energy in you, that agility will be in you, that smartness, of course, will be in you. When you get to rest, sometimes you become much rusty. Yes, well, you don't.
But just a few weeks ago, she was in the quarterfinals. She lost out in the quarterfinals of the Washington Open. You know, and I think that should have prepare her for this very difficult beginning at the U.S. Open in Flushing Meadows.
Let's see how it goes, you know, for Emma Raducanu. We're just looking forward to see what she'll be able to do this time at the U.S. Open. We understand even the season has not been so rosy for her. She's not been so fantastic. I understand that injury has also contributed to her setback, and with the fact that, you know, over time she's not been having a good relationship with her coaches, also has contributed to a little bit of setback for her. But we hope that this time around we're going to see a new Emma Raducanu, a rebranded Emma Raducanu from what we've seen. I think since she suffered, I think was it the shoulder injury, she's been able to get back herself, you know, and she's just going to take it a game after game. You know, if she wants to put her mind in the tournament, it might be a very huge one. But if you take it, if you take the game one after the other, I think that will really help her mentally going in this particular one.
And there's a particular fixture that after the draw a few days ago, we saw Shelby Rogers from the United States of America up against another American, Jessica Pegula. This is, it looks for me, a pairing that has come too early.
Yeah, a pairing that definitely came too early. And for me, I think Jessica Pegula, she's one lady that we thought, of course, probably should have been challenging for the world #1, probably world #2 sport. But when you expect her, of course, to give her best, you know, she actually fall short. Just like what we saw in the just concluded Cincinnati Open. She went all the way to the final, but was beaten by Aryna Sabalenka. And that's, of course, that's what I just said. When it matters most, you don't see her living up to expectation. But against Shelby Rogers, who is also an experienced player, so I think it's going to be an interesting one to watch out for. But when you take a look at it, I think you definitely want to give Jessica Pegula, you know, that edge of edging out Shelby Rogers.
Meanwhile, Jelena Ostapenko from Latvia will be up against Naomi Osaka from Japan in one of the fixtures. But beyond that, there is this fixture involving defending champions Coco Gauff against Varvara Charakrava of France. This looks like a very tricky one for the defending champion Coco Gauff.
Yes, it looks like a very tricky one because Coco Gauff, she's not really shown that tenacity. She's not really, you know, shown herself to be one of that big name that, you know, you always have that fear factor when you want to compete with. That's why I said it should be a tough one. You know, ordinarily you would say it should have been a roller coaster for Coco Gauff, but in her game anything can happen. That's why I don't really have much confidence on her. But she's the defending champion, and she knows what is at stake as well, you know, in this particular one. To be ousted out in the first round or in the second round, it will be very embarrassing. And I think she's going to step up her game this time to see, you know, what she can put up at this time. Defending
champion Coco Gauff out there against a relatively unknown French tennis player in the very first round. It's tricky, I must tell you. They're talking about being tricky with fixtures at the U.S. Open for 2024. Aryna Sabalenka, the world #2, is up against Priscilla Horn from Australia. This is another match where a lot of people believe that Sabalenka should be able to get past in easy, or just a straight set. Sabalenka, if you remember, at the beginning of the year, won the Australian Open, but thereafter she struggled in the other subsequent Grand Slam. This is the last Grand Slam of the year. Can she make it Grand Slam number 2?
Yes, I think she can. She just won the Cincinnati Open. I think with that coming down to this particular U.S. Open is a very good way, for her to come down to the U.S. Open. So for me, I think she has what it takes to compete. After all, if you take a look at it this season, it's been a tussle between her and world number 1 Iga Swiatek. So I think she has what it takes. For her first round opponent, I don't think that will be an issue for her. It will be an easy pass, and we hope to see her go very far this time around.
Flushing Meadows is the venue of this year's U.S. Open in New York, and that promises to be very, very thrilling. I must say I missed it, but then let's look at what the males will do at the 2024 U.S. Open. A lot of attention is on the world number 1, Yannick Sinner. We've seen a couple of tennis players, bigger tennis players, caught in such circumstance, and the matter doesn't get decided after a period of 1 year. The earliest is about a year, but it looks like for Yannick Sinner, he has come much earlier. He was only accused, in March, and this is August, and he's out of it. And
the fact that he was tested twice, he was tested twice, and the result came out positive in both tests, and that's why some of the players are not happy. That how will he come out positive? The test will come out positive in both tests, and they still allowed him. They didn't even give him probably, maybe suspension, let's say 6 months to 1 year or thereabout. We understand, yes, points was deducted from him, and as well, he was also surcharged and all of that, but sure, he cleared the way heading down to the U.S. Open.
Yannick Sinner, man who has been cleared after just 3 or 4 months and allowed to play tennis, and of course that's making Simona Halep and of course Dan Evans of Britain not happy, because in their own instances they were giving more than their 1 year wait for them to be cleared of their allegation. But then it is what it is. Yannick Sinner, world number 1 now, is back and strong. In fact, he didn't leave; he was still playing in the course of in the investigation. But that's what it is. He will have an American in the first round of the U.S. Open, the last Grand Slam of the year. Let's hope that he will take advantage of what has transpired, to his own just a victory. Meanwhile, Mattia Melucci of Italy is up against Stan Wawrinka of Switzerland. This is another tricky one for the tall man from Switzerland, Stan Wawrinka.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. Stan Wawrinka, of course, he hasn't really been at his best, for some time now. But we hope that, of course, this one will be an easy ride, for him at the end of the day.
A lot of attention is on Carlos Alcaraz. Remember him, the man from Spain. He won the French Open, and this is another Grand Slam. Can he make it Grand Slam number 4? In fact, number 5. But first, he has to take out Li Tu from Australia in the first round of the U.S. Open. Carlos Alcaraz from Spain.
Yeah, easy pass for me on paper in this particular one for Alcaraz. But we hope that he's going to try most kind to get past, the little thing is going through. We understand the man is a little bit frustrated. We saw him in the finals of the Olympic Games where he lost to Novak Djokovic. Came back to the Cincinnati Open. He lost, I think, in the 3rd round. He was very frustrated. We saw him throwing his rackets, after that particular.
And what he described as his worst game in
worst game. So we hope that he's going to get over that and see how he can put himself straight. This is another Grand Slam for him to challenge. We understand the very best here. Djokovic is also here. Yannick Sinner is also here. So it's going to be a little bit, intense. But we hope that he's going to get over whatever is going through at the moment and put his best in this particular one.
Mention Novak Djokovic, the man from Serbia. A lot of people would believe that he should be able to take advantage of this last Grand Slam to make it number 25 in tennis, and that will be the highest you can find in any male trophy cabinet. But he has Radu Abel from Macedonia to contend with. You would think that the world number 2 should be able to take care of this Abbott from Macedonia.
Definitely. It should be an easy pass for Novak Djokovic, who has done so well for himself, winning the Olympic Games and then have to rest and then coming back to this particular U.S. Open. I think for me, it would be a good way for him to end the season. If he gets this one, the Grand Slam number 25, that would be a very huge one, of course, for him this year, and getting past the record of Margaret Court, who won the 24 Grand Slam for herself. And if he gets past that record this season, it will be a very good one for Novak Djokovic. And I tell you, the man has done a lot. I don't see anything, of course, in his way, just to get past that record of Margaret Court. And I think with this, in this particular U.S. Open, he can possibly do that one.
Novak Djokovic first have to take out a relatively unknown Radio Albert and to getting his number 25 if it's possible. But don't forget there is Alcaraz in the race. There is still Andrei Rublev, one man from Russia, who has failed to make it big on the biggest stage. The Grand Slam is yet another opportunity for him to see whether he can get his very first. Thiago Sebot from Brazil will be his first opponent at the US Open.
Yeah, for me, I think Andrew Rublev, for me, he has not done well over time. I expected a player like him to have, step up his game. You talk about Andrew Rublev, you talk about Francis Tofio, you talk about Alexander Zverev, and talking about Daniel Medvedev. These are players you expect over time to have improved.
Yeah, and Sinner has been able to break out of that class.
Yes, they've broken out of that, particular category. But, you see Daniel Medvedev, Alexander Zverev in Grand Slams, and you see them, crumbling. They're not really improving. So for me, we'll just see if they'll be able to, of course, put up some level of performance this time at the US Open.
We just have to wrap up on our main discourse for this edition of Sports Extraordinary, which is the US Open. Kingsley, we understand this is the largest prize money tournament in tennis. For the first time, $75 million is at stake. And if you win as a champion, both in the male and female category, you take $3.6 million, as your prize money for winning only the title. And it's besides the other amount you, of course, you get from the first round. From the first round, you could, if you don't win at the first round, you can still go home with $100,000, and that's quite a lot of money. We've never seen tennis with so much purse as large as $75 million.
It's massive, very, very massive. And as well, for me, I think the organizers, they've done a great job this time in being able, of course, to accrue this huge amount of money. We understand that, more sponsorship, of course,
it's $75 million. He became known, here in Nigeria. Lately, his coach, Hadland FC, they went on relegation, but somehow they were able to buy a place back.
Yep.
And they were preparing for a preseason game, which, of course, the season gets underway in just about 5 days from now.
Yeah, for me, it was, like I said, it was really an unfortunate one, but we understand what the man has contributed to football down here in Nigeria. Just like you mentioned, he was in the under-20 team. That was in way back 1985, a very long time. He also participated at the Olympic Games. That was the Olympic in 1988, for Team Nigeria. And he's a man, of course, who has contributed, to the football body down here in Nigeria. And I think for me, this season would have probably been a very good one for him, knowing that Heartland will be coming back, and Emmanuel Elmunike, of course, being at the aim of affairs down there for Heartland. Maybe would have been a season where he would have probably changed things, looking at how poor or bad they performed last time. But this happened. I tell you, Mrs. Siri, not a very good one at the moment.
Very sad, but our heart goes out to the family of Christian Obi and, of course, Heartland FC of Owerri, sponsored by the Imo State government. Difficult times, I must say, but what do we know? We have to, be a brother's keeper at this time around. We understand there is a new coach to the team. There was employed just recently, Emmanuel Elmunike. I'm very sure that he will lose a very able lieutenant because he will have relied on him to giving him information about the club side. Well, like we said, our hearts are really out with the family. Let's quickly get to the other story we have for you in football this weekend. It looks like the Nigerian Football Federation is still dilly-dallying about getting a coach. We're just about under 3 weeks to a major qualifier in Uyo at the Gospel Private Stadium, where they are expected to take on their counterparts in a Nations Cup qualifier.
Yes, and we understand that the Super Eagles camp will open on the 1st of September, which is very close. We just have about 6 days to the 1st of September.
And there's no coach.
And they don't have a coach. And I wonder who is going to call the players, or maybe the NFF would be the one, of course, to call the
They have a technical department.
Okay, maybe
led by Austin Eguavon.
Maybe they will be the one, of course, to select the players this time around. But for me, I think it's a poor preparation. And from what we're seeing on ground, I'm not really seeing the NFF, hiring a manager in the space of 2 weeks at this point. I think they want to bring in an interim manager to see the AFCON qualifiers, and then maybe after then they can then look forward to.
But we understand that we had discussions with Gianni Anderson from Sweden.
Yep.
They've had discussion with René Have. Remember the French coach. Why can't they consummate these deals and so that they can get to start work immediately?
They say they don't have money to pay these coaches. Their salary is very, very huge. Javi Renard is demanding for $125,000. Why I think that of Anderson is about $100,000. So the NFF are saying they don't have money. I think the other day we got a report that they want to that they are in talks with a philanthropist to help pay about 10 months salary of these coaches before they can employ any of these managers on ground. So for me, I think it's a very huge setback to the Football Federation down here in Nigeria. How can you be there and you do not work out means to be able to get maybe sponsors or see where you can get money? You always rely on the sport ministry, or sometimes what about the FIFA grants? What do we do with all of this money sometimes that comes to the federation? The little sponsorship we've been seeing, what are you doing with this money? That at the end of the day they want to go to a philanthropist to pay the Super Eagles coach. So for me, I think the NFF, they're not doing enough. They've not done enough. Ibrahim Gusau really have to step up his game, because it is so abysmal that we have 2 weeks to the AFCON qualifiers. The Super Eagles of Nigeria, as big as the Super Eagles, do not have a coach. So for me, I think it's really not a very good one, and the NFF should step up in terms of administration of football.
Nigeria Football Federation need to step up and hire a coach for the Super Eagles with just about 6 days to the season getting off, because we are aware that the players are supposed to be in camp just about 6 days, and now the team is still without a coach. It looks very, very difficult. But what do we know? The Nigeria Football Federation is completely in charge. We hope that they will do what they are charged to do. Away from that, let's get you some latest reports about Nigerian teams at the continent. Remember, just a few days ago, the 2024-2025 continental matches got underway both at the Confederations Cup level and the CAF Champions League level. Nigerian Rangers International have qualified for the second round of the CAF Champions League. They took out their counterparts from Comoros Island by 2-1 on aggregate scoreline. There was a scare at the Gospel Private Stadium with a 1-1 scoreline in the return leg fixture at the same stadium.
Yes, for me, I think was a narrow escape for Rangers. I think they would have probably done that with ease. Zulumaju FC of Comoros, I don't think they should have been a very tough opponent for Enugu Rangers. Taking a look at the pedigree of Rangers, they were even at home. Yes, we understand they were playing away from at home, but they were in Nigeria. At least they had a little bit of support, from the fans down there. Both legs were played at a bit of advantage for Rangers, but 2-1 on aggregates victory. So you played as Zulumaju 2-1. So what would be the outcome of the next encounter when you meet a tougher opponent? So for me, it wasn't very.
No two games are the same. Yeah, no two games are the same. We'll just hope that they will take advantage of and play at home, and because what it means is that they drew their home fixture and won their away game. Well, what's important is that they've qualified for the second round of the CAF Champions League. The two teams are representing Nigeria in the CAF Champions League in a bid to qualify for the group stage. The other is Remo Stars, play at their own stadium at Kene. It was 2-1 against Asfa of Morocco. Kingsley, in the next, this weekend, we see Remo Stars in a return fixture in Casablanca, one place where it's difficult to win. Especially for a Nigerian club side.
Honestly, Mr. Siri, I'm really afraid, because I don't think Remo Stars has what it takes to withstand Asfa of Morocco this time.
They trained with a simulated sound, a noisy background. They put on a loudspeaker, to make a lot of noise, because it will be deafening inside the Casablanca stadium.
Yeah. Let's see if that will help them. Let's see if that will help them. But aside from that, apart from training with loudspeakers and all of that, it is what's going to happen in the pitch. We'll see what the Casablanca guys, of course, will do. That's what, of course, will matter at the end of the day. I will hope that what happened last time will not repeat itself, where we saw them had an impressive performance, so went down to Morocco and lost. We hope that going down to Morocco this time, they'll be able to change the narrative.
Well, the Rangers International qualifier for the second round. Let's hope that Remo Stars will make do and qualify as well. Remo Stars definitely will be thinking about what happened to them last year against this same ASFA that eliminated them from the first round of the CAF Champions League. And talk about qualification for the CAF Champions League reminds me that the Do Queens have qualified to represent Nigeria at the Wafu Zone B of the CAF Women's Champions League. How did Do Queens qualify here, Kingsley?
Had a very impressive performance so far. I think they played about 5 games. They won all 5 games, only conceded 1 goal in the whole games they played.
They scored over 20 goals?
Scored over 20 goals. And yesterday, against the team from Benin Republic, they played 3 goals to nil. It was a very impressive performance, of course, for the Edo girls. And Moses Adoko, I think he's been very, very fantastic with his tactics at this time around with these guys. Kudos to them qualifying for the CAF Women's Champions League. They're the 3rd Nigerian female team to play in the CAF Champions League this time. We saw Rivers Angels there. Bayelsa Queens, of course, also made it last time. And now we're having Edo Queens. For me, a really, really an impressive performance. We hope with what they're able to do this time, they can be able to replicate that in the CAF Champions League when it kickstarts. I was really, really happy with the level of performance. We saw them play against Hazaska's Ladies of Ghana. We understand how experienced Hazaska's Ladies were, but they were still able to get past them. So for me, I think the girls did a very good job, and we hope that come the CAF Champions League, they'll be able to do the same.
Congratulations to Edo Queens representing Nigeria and, of course, Africa, Wafu Zone B, not just Nigeria, Wafu Zone B at the forthcoming Women's CAF Champions League. Away from that, Kingsley, let's look at return of football to Europe. Last weekend, we saw plenty of action in the Premier League. Of course, excitement across Nigeria, especially with that follow the Premier League so far. Which was your major highlight of the season in the 2024-2025 football season in England?
For me, the major highlight was to see Unai Emery taking Aston Villa back, of course, to the Champions League. Had a very, very, of course, impressive season. We saw him, being a blockage to Arsenal. The Arsenal, of course, were contending for the title. But for me, Unai Emery really, really stepped up, his game with the Aston Villa guys. Taking them back to the Champions League, of course, was really the one for me. And we hope to see them, of course, this time putting up that impressive performance and see what they can be able to do in the UEFA Champions League.
Talking about the beginning of the league in England for 2024-2025 season, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Manchester City had a proper, start, if you want to say.
Yeah, they had a proper start. Manchester United, of course, also had a very good start. Manchester City as well. Arsenal were very, very good. I think you take a look at it, about 6 top teams in the EPL, had a very good start, apart from Chelsea Football Club, who didn't do well against Manchester City.
Chelsea and West Ham?
Yeah, Chelsea and West Ham.
I'm sorry, Everton.
Everton, yes, didn't do well, in that in the first game I saw. So
Everton, they were beaten by Brighton by 3-0 on home soil.
And of course, I'm not really surprised in that game because Brighton.
No, you're playing inside your own stadium in your first game. You lose by 3-0.
But we've seen a very massive improvement from the Brighton team. The last 2 seasons, they've been very, very fantastic. If not if the fact that, okay, they've sold some of their players and a change of manager as well. The Brighton team, they've been very, very active. So we even saw them as well this weekend where they played against Manchester United and they were able to beat them in that particular encounter. So for me, I think we should give Brighton, of course, some level of credence this time. But the level they've stepped up, I think they should be competing in a very, very high way. But let's see what, of course, match day 2 will look like.
Talking about match day 2 reminds me, Manchester United, yes, they won their first game. They've lost their second game against a team that you should think they should take care of better. This is Brighton that walloped Everton by 3-0.
Brighton at home.
Brighton at home beating Manchester United.
Manchester United. So for me, like I mentioned, I've seen massive improvements in this Brighton side. We saw how, of course, they were able to, handle Manchester United, of course, this weekend. And for me, it is really speak volume of them, coming down to this season. For Manchester United, Eric Ten Hag, before the season started, said is that his team is not ready. And if you take a look at it, yes, you will see. I don't think they are really ready because they're still having some, issues when it has to do with the defense. They brought in, some of their new signing. Martin Delete, of course, was in, of course, this weekend, but he wasn't that wasn't that fantastic. Jozef, of course, was also in the mix today, but was not that good. Another player that has also declined in terms of performance is Marcus Rashford. Was substituted in the 60th minute of that particular encounter we saw. So I don't think things are really going down well for Manchester United. I think it is not just the young lads that are trying to, of course, to see how they can step up their performance. You talk about Konacho, Kobe Mino. These are players that have been seeing how to put things right, but it's not really going down well for Manchester United. And this is where Eric Ten Hag has to think out of the box to see how to put this right. This is his third season. He's not just there to win domestic titles. He has to step up his game in winning, continental titles as well. Especially, he should be contending for the Premier League this season.
Well, in the La Liga, we've seen matches as well. Real Madrid drew against, I think, Mallorca, 1-1. Then Barcelona beat their opponent by 2-1. Yeah. So it looks like a better start for Barcelona against Real Madrid.
A very good start for Barcelona against Real Madrid, beating Valencia 2-1. And Real Madrid drawing against Mallorca. For me, I think is a good one. And there's a little bit of setback coming in for Real Madrid. We hear Bellingham will be sidelined for a month because he actually sustained an injury this weekend, of course, in their training ground. So I think there's a little bit of setback, but I think Carlo Ancelotti has a way, of course, to navigate his team through. In
French League 1, Paris Saint-Germain have started well. We saw them only a few hours ago beat their counterparts from Montpellier FC by 6-0 without Kylian Mbappe.
And so many persons are saying it is just 2 games, and I think they've scored about, let's say, 8 goals in the absence of Kylian Mbappe. I think Luis Enrique is trying, of course, to put the team, of course, together in the absence of Kylian Mbappe, and I think he's gradually getting, of course, what he wants at this point.
Well, let's look at the German Bundesliga. They are back this weekend, and what is in it for the Germans this season?
What a good way, of course, to start for Bayern Leverkusen, who won the league, last time. We saw them played against Borussia Mönchengladbach. It was really an intense encounter. But of course, we saw them, doing what they did last season, coming back, of course, in late minutes, of course, to get that particular one. I think for me, it was a very, very good way for Xabi Alonso and his men to start the season.
We'll have to wrap up the show now with our sports extraordinaire for this weekend. The league here in Nigeria gets underway in just about a few days from now. There is a competition among coaches in the Premier League. Kisli, can you pick one coach that could be focused for the week in the Premier League here in Nigeria? Because we have return of something. Well, not yet with Academy Warriors, but we understand it's being poked by Academy Warriors. There is Finidi George, there is Emmanuel Monike, and the likes of Mama Mapakabo. So, which coach will you put on the spotlight for 2024-2025 football season?
Finidi George.
Finidi George, spotlight. Well, that is it for this edition of Sports Extraordinary Weekend Edition. We'll return back next weekend with yet another very exciting fixture. Finidi George, a man to look out for in the 2024-2025 football season here in Nigeria. Until we return next weekend, remember, peace and unity are clearly pathways to progress. Always enjoy here on Atlantic Television Network.